Welcome to the Beyond Barriers podcast. If you're an ambitious woman who wants to dominate your career, then you are in the right place. This podcast is co-hosted by Nikki Barua, digital innovator, serial entrepreneur, author, and speaker, and Monica Marquez, ex-Googler, diversity expert, and senior corporate leader. From inspiring stories to cutting-edge strategies, you'll learn how to develop the skill set, mindset, and tool set to get future-ready fast and accelerate your success. Hi, I'm Monica Marquez, your host for today's episode. In this anxious and stressful time of COVID-19, it's hard to know what to do. Over a few short weeks, the pandemic has brought the hospitality industry to its knees. For many, it's easy to feel so overwhelmed, it's hard to do anything. However, our guest today, one of the premier connectors and luxury consultants around, Nick Champagne, aka the voice of luxury, pivoted his energy and expertise in the world of hospitality to focus on bringing much needed hospitality to frontline workers. Nick has 20 years of experience in the hospitality industry, ranging from food and beverage, events, marketing, brand relationships, lifestyle concierge services, and luxury networking. Nick's love for his city and the people in it led him to begin Hospital-ity amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Hospital-ity is an initiative to feed and protect frontline hospital workers while supporting local restaurants and meal prep businesses in the hospitality industry in an effort to preserve jobs. In a little under a month, the team has sent over 6,500 meals to hospitals in New York and New Jersey, and has also started to deliver protective face shields and masks as well. In this episode, Nick shares how his vision of not only giving back to those who need it, but also spreading positivity in the event of the most difficult times. Visit IamBeyondBarriers.com, where you'll find show notes and links to all of the resources referenced in this episode, including the best way to get in touch with Nick. Welcome, Nick. Thank you for joining us on the Beyond Barriers podcast. We are so excited to share your story today and share more information about your initiative, Hospital-ity, and all of the wonderful things you're doing for the frontline workers in New York City and New Jersey.
Sure. Thank you, Monica. I appreciate it. I'm happy that you guys had offered me to be here. It's exciting.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, my story. I live in New York City. I have a background in hospitality. Basically every aspect of hospitality. I have experience in nightlife, in marketing, in events, in concierge, and tying them all together. Growing up, my grandparents owned liquor stores and restaurants. So from a very early age, I was around people and I guess subconsciously understanding and learning what people wanted. Just at a very, very early age. So then, through high school and college, I, like everyone else, had twists and turns of what was I going to do, what was I going to be, but it was, it always came back to hospitality. I ended up helping my friends in college with some events and nightclub parties by accident, literally just to help them, and, became pretty good at that. So I got into that world of that side of hospitality and nightlife. As I maneuvered through that, I, escalated that into marketing and events and built up quite a Rolodex to, basically get anything done. And over time, from an early age also, I had a fascination with luxury, with the best of the best, reading, Robb Report and DuPont Registry when I was like 7 or 10 or 12 or whatever it was.
Those were your bedtime stories. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't afford the magazine, let alone anything in it. Right.
Yeah.
So, but I was fascinated with these things, whether it be cars or homes or boats or whatever it was. And I became an expert in that world by just being around it and seeing how I can show value in that world. And, fast forward to around 2005, I started a quote unquote concierge that was modeled after a Las Vegas hosting company. After a lot of the New York people had moved out to Las Vegas to revolutionize the nightlife industry out there, there was a lot of back and forth between, the Vegas casino host and independent host and nightclub host sending people to New York. and they would ask me to host those people. So I created a company out of it. Didn't think much of it because I still had my marketing and event business. And then 2007, 8, 9 happened, especially, the infamous 2008, right? The economic downturn. During that time, my marketing and event company was totally shot. So we were dealing with luxury brands. We were dealing with marketing budgets that completely evaporated. Top tier brands that were looking to do all these amazing things. We were perfectly positioned, and all of a sudden they were gone. The only budgets that they had at all were to maintain their recession-proof clients. So, okay, great. What do I do now? And I was very fortunate to have, one of my first billionaire clients in 2008 as well. Luckily enough and synchronistically, I wondered though, are the people who are my clients at that time, are they going to change their lifestyle? How are they going to be affected? And I'm not talking about bankers or hedge fund people. I'm talking about people in other industries that were not directly affected. And I learned a lot psychologically at that time. Very big on psychology from the hospitality background, just understanding what people want. And while that happened, I noticed that, let's say you and I live on the same block in Palm Beach or in Long Island or Beverly Hills or anywhere that's affluent, right? And let's say I lose my business during that time. We live next to each other. You're probably not going to buy a new Bentley and, park it in front of the house or in your driveway or whatever the case may be. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not able to or entitled to do so. But from a humane standpoint, right, it's like, okay, cool. I'm a little sensitive that my friend, my neighbor is affected by this. So I'm not going to flaunt something in their face. And, that was nice and refreshing to see. But what I also learned, which is very important and valid, and especially in a time like this, is that, above a certain point, affluent people are not going to change their lives if they're not affected. They're going to continue, but they're going to be a little more mindful about their surroundings. So they're still going to go on their trips. They're still going to buy their items. They're just not going to be as loud and, outspoken about it. But when they're in the places like, let's say, Saint-Tropez or St. Bart's or, Aspen or wherever it is that they're around many like-minded people that are all on the same level, they're going to continue to act, their norm. So, through that time I learned, and, after that, once things bounced back in, let's say 2010, 11, 12, it was straight up until now, right? And I just continued to position myself with the high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals, with the luxury brands that bounced back, and connecting the dots. That's what I do. I connect the dots. I'm a connector. We create experiences, but what's important to me is fulfillment. So, I met you and Nikki through the Tony Robbins ecosystem, and, over the past, 2.5, 3 years, it's been another part of the journey, really studying personal development, more psychology, and especially in my circles dealing with high net worth and ultra high net worth, sometimes that lack of fulfillment, right? Where it's just, you could get into a conversation about how important is money and things of that nature. And, I'm never going to be someone that says money is not important. It's very important. It gives you options. It's not the only thing. It's not the most important thing. I can tell you many, many extremely wealthy people that I've met and deal with on a regular basis who are lacking some level of fulfillment because they're not connected to something that's more. So, now during this time, there's a lot of people that were very well positioned for an economic downturn. And now here we are in 2020, and we have economic and socioeconomic effects of what's going on. But there's also a health factor, which is very different, because you can't live the same way, at least for this moment, and you have to adapt to that. So, like you said earlier in our conversation about, our personal conversation about adapting, that's what it is. It's about adapting. It's about pivots, and, it's an exciting time. I say this often, I'm fortunate and very grateful that I'm safe and healthy, my family's safe and healthy, people around me, and a vast majority of the people that are close to me and that I care about are safe and healthy. Very grateful for that. Not everyone's as fortunate, and life happens. That's something that's beyond our control, and we can wonder why, or we can just take a step back and regroup and move forward. And I think that the future is bright. I think that there's so many things going on right now that are creating opportunity in an ethical way. And if you live in gratitude, and you live in contribution, and you live in looking for fulfillment, not only for yourself but for others, that there's the future's very bright. The future's very bright. When this passes, it's going to be an outstanding time. That's how I feel. You
mentioned something that you grew up at a young age, understanding what people wanted. And I think that is a critical and important lesson that I guess has been ingrained in you, because it is, just the human psyche is always what's in it for me. And, really understanding your customer and that niche. But in what Nikki and I do in terms of helping, women accelerate their success in their careers, we're always telling them, who is your target audience, and know who they are and what it is that they need. It doesn't matter if, it's in the context of an organization or company. Who are you serving? Who is your client? And I think that's important. Extremely important.
So important. Well, I always make the joke about, the chef that cooks for him or herself, or the DJ that plays music for him or herself, right? You can't do that. If you're doing that, you're not going to win. You have to understand your audience completely. And that's relevant for any industry. That's relevant for any situation. It could be, a gathering of tens or hundreds of people or thousands of people, or it could be a one-on-one business meeting or dinner. If you're not aligned, if you don't build rapport, you're going to be off. You're going to read things wrong. The other person that you're meeting with, or the people that you're dealing with, are not going to be receptive, because you're not going to be in alignment. And that's super, super important. You nailed it.
Yeah. So I want to dig a little into how agile and how nimble you have been, because you talked about, of course, the 2007, 2008, and you had to shift because your marketing business and was just, the recession caused you to have to pivot. And now you find yourself, you are in, the hospitality industry that is being impacted significantly because of this whole pandemic. And it's completely out of your control. But you're one of those few individuals that we absolutely admire, because rather than throwing your hands up in the air saying, oh my God, my business is being impacted, you pivoted, and you really came from a place of service. And we really admire what you started doing in terms of supporting all of the healthcare workers, and starting the, which I love your play on words, of the hospitality kind of meals and masks kind of effort that you were doing. What made you immediately shift in, that mindset in that direction, opposed to like many other people, which rightfully so, became very panicked and almost deer in headlights, and you did something completely different? And tell us what went through your mind at that time.
I will. Thanks. I appreciate the acknowledgement, and I appreciate the question, because it's super important. And you mentioned agility. That's also so important. I equate a lot of things to sports growing up. I played soccer to, a reasonably high level, and I was supposed to play in college, and I chose not to. But I think it's all about seeing things ahead, right? Being a couple steps ahead of things, right? And, we have this pandemic that, quite frankly, I deal with a lot of very knowledgeable, powerful people, as do you and Nikki and, your team and your circles. And I really don't believe that many people, because I think some may have to some level, knew what was going on, right? Not getting into, crazy conspiracies and anything like that. That's not where I live. That's not how I operate.
Right.
But prior to this happening, I was, looking for what's next. As I mentioned earlier, I did all of this personal and business development over the past few years. You trim the fat in many different ways. In your circles, you tighten the circle. And I was looking for what's next in my industry and my business. And, taking my company from analog to digital and keeping AI in mind, right? To put it on a macro level.
Right.
We were planning that before, and all of a sudden, February, March, April, boom, this hit you in the face. So, the timing is interesting, but as you know from the Tony Robbins world, it's like winter's coming. Is this winter, or is this that proverbial October snowstorm that happens out of nowhere just to be prepared? And then, like this year, it doesn't even snow anymore. You know what I mean? So we don't know yet, but to act quickly and be agile and pivot, that's what we did. We put a plan together. We're actually raising money for my business. I'm building an advisory board, and that's happening now, and it's happening very, very well. And we're dealing with people that see opportunity in the future. So again, very fortunate for this time to happen the way it is. That being said, my business is almost completely dead at the moment. In the travel side, in the hospitality side, in the experiences side, they just don't happen, right? So everyone's going to technology and digital and doing Zooms like this and webinars and podcasts and so on. So that being said, we're planning a lot for the future. That led me to have some extra time. Many people complain they have no time. And many of those same people now you see on social media saying, I just finished, these 10 series on Netflix. What do I watch now? And I'm like, you're doing it wrong. What's wrong with you? You're the same person that said this last time. Now you're saying this, and that's why. Anyway, with that extra time, you can only do so much when you're raising money with investors and advisors and so on, as you know. So I had this extra time on my hands, and I live in Manhattan on First Avenue. If you see behind me, you'll see hospitals.
Yes. And
let's call it March, the beginning of March, middle of March, I would see, looking down First Avenue, I live right next to NYU Langone, I would see an uncomfortable amount of ambulances coming up First Avenue. And there's 3 hospitals right near me. So there's always a lot of ambulances. This was an uncomfortable amount. And I don't watch the news often, and I don't tune into things like that. I changed the channel, but I could see firsthand that something wasn't right. And, I thought, I guess I get my news on social media, right? Or from my friends or from my masterminds or whatever the case may be. And this Corona thing, and we don't know, and there's a lot of unknowns and everything. Okay, great. We don't know what's going to happen. It might just be another this. It might be another that. Everyone's speculating. Great. I'm seeing firsthand what's going on. And I said, you know what? I want to do something nice. I anonymously attempted to send a few pizzas to NYU emergency room, which were kindly rejected by the security there. So I ordered them on Seamless. I ordered them anonymously. I put a note, please, these are anonymous. Just bring them, drop them off. Great. I get a call from the delivery person. Hey, who are these going to? Security stopped us. I said, oh, well, I don't really know who they're going to because it was anonymous and I was just, trying to do something nice.
Right.
Said, well, they won't let me in. What do I do? I said, okay, I don't know what to say. I totally understand it. It's security reasons. It's the hospital. I get it. Bring it to my building, give it to my doorman. Cool. Failed attempt that we salvaged.
Right.
So I reached out to some friends in the medical industry and I said, this is what I'm looking to do. How bad really is it? Like, what can we do to help? Not that the healthcare workers need food, right? Because they're quite capable on their own of ordering food.
Right.
It's more of the morale boosting.
Right.
So I, acted quickly, thought about it, the marketing comes to mind and the hospitality background. And I said, not only do we want to feed the frontline healthcare workers, we want to boost their morale, right? But also, background in hospitality. Think about the restaurants that are remaining open. Think about my friends who own restaurants, my friends who work in restaurants, my friends who manage restaurants, and they're in shambles. They don't know what's going to happen. There's uncertainty. And many closed. Totally understand. But many stayed open. And the ones that stayed open, I don't believe they truly did it for profit, because they're not going to, without being open, without serving on site, they're not going to make their budget. They're not going to make money. And I want to help them make their budget. I want to, God bless, if they make money, commerce during this time, if it's honest with integrity and ethics, I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Right.
You know, there's a whole different conversation about gouging certain things, and you know that's different. That's unacceptable. But if someone can open a business or keep their business open at this point, and you know, make it and profit and fight through, I'm all for supporting that person. And so that's what we did. So, you know, ultimately we came up with this hospitality concept with hospital in all caps and the ITY for hospitality, focusing on the front line, feeding and, you know, now protecting, right? Because we added masks and other PPE that's been donated to us very kindly. And, you know, also supporting those restaurants, but also preserving jobs. So we're providing a solution on some levels to three problems. Makes me feel really good. And then we started getting text messages and emails and such from, you know, from the front line, from the charge nurses, from the schedule managers and stuff like that, that were saying, oh, this is so great. You know, we've publicized some of them. They're just amazing. The amount of gratitude and just, it's very touching, because we received some not so pleasant messages too. Not directed towards us, but just about what was going on, the trauma that these people were experiencing during the peak in New York, what they were seeing, and just, you know, I don't want to get dark on this, but it wasn't pleasant, right? So to be able to provide some level of light during that dark time was amazing. And, you know, so we ramped it up and we did a GoFundMe, and, you know, so far we've raised over $40,000, which, is that a lot or is that a little? You could look at it many different ways. There's other organizations that are doing things on a much bigger level. I don't know that they're as hands-on and impactful, and that means something to me. So, you know, I have a team of people that's helping me, a lot of volunteers. It's fantastic. I really appreciate it. 100% of what we're raising is going towards the cause. We've sent out over 7,000 meals at this point. That's in, you know, just a bit over a month. And
it's amazing.
You know, I think I'm shooting for 10,000 in May alone. You know, this is without my members of my company and my bigger clients even doing anything yet. Before I went to them, I wanted this to be able to survive on its own. Right. And it is. The concept is proven. We have a well-oiled machine. You know, we have between 5 and 10 restaurants that we're using regularly. And, you know, meal prep companies and stuff like that. We've gotten our costs down to $5 on average for a meal, for like a good meal. It's even less when it's pizza, but like a good healthy meal is somewhere $5, $7. And, you know, while I want to send as much as possible and help as many people, it's easy to activate at $5, but I also want to help the restaurants that are really struggling. And they're like, listen, Nick, I really can't do less than 7 or really can't do less than 10. I don't want to beat them up and be like, oh, well, meet me here, match that, discount that. We'll talk to them about it. And if they can, they will. But, you know, once we have more funds coming in, then that won't really be a conversation. It'll be more like, okay, cool. We have this $10,000 or $20,000 to deploy. Where do we send it? We have this 100,000 to deploy. We could do X amount of meals at this cost, really support these people. Oh, and by the way, we're matching with masks. We're sending out face shields. We're, you know, gowns are in high demand. We have people that are transacting on very, very large levels that are donating to us because of that. We're solving several problems. So that really feels good. And, you know, it's a good way also to communicate with my clients, my vendors, to stay relevant. That wasn't the reason, but I started, you know, really diving into philanthropic efforts in 2011. I love Christmas and the holidays. I always have. It's just a happy time. And I would do this toy drive, just Christmas party toy drive for my friends. It was started out with 20 people, got up to 70 or 80 people. And I'll never forget one year, 2011, one of my friends who's going to be on my advisory board moving forward, she said, Nick, let's do this bigger. I said, sounds amazing. What do you want to do? Like, we did, 100 people. This was right after 2010. She said, you dropped all these toys off in Times Square for Toys for Tots, the Marines, this and that. And, let's do it bigger. Get some recognition for you, get some recognition for your company. I said, well, it's not really why I do it. She said, I know that and you know that. But there's people that are sitting on the sidelines that are thinking the same way that you are, because they want to be anonymous and they don't want the recognition. They just want to have fun. They want to do something nice. But think about it this way. If you bring awareness to what you're doing, those people on the sidelines can support you, and it'll amplify your message. It'll amplify your cause. I said, it's really a great point. Let's do it. That year, 2011, we partnered with Petra Nemkova, the supermodel, and it was right after the Haitian earthquake. I'll never do this again. We sent 1,300 toys to Haiti. We did a 450 person event. We raised $10,000, which does not sound like a lot. But the questions were, we did not charge to get in. It was an invite-only party. We did not charge for tables. Everything was sponsored. And they said, Nick, how are you going to collect 1,000 toys if there's only about 400 people coming? I said, I don't really know, but we'll figure it out. The year before, we had, my friends and people that attended that were bringing these really nice toys, spending $50 and $100 on toys. And I said, that's really nice, but I don't think you guys, bringing it back to your point before, I don't think you understand your audience. We're giving to people that don't have anything. And, if you're going to spend that amount, that's very nice, but buy 5 toys. Now we're talking the opposite of our normal life, or, our normal circles. Quality over quantity is usually the case. Now it's quantity over quality to help more people. There's a shift, right? That pivot, right? So we did that. We sent 1,300 toys to Haiti. I think we raised around $14,000 through a silent auction, and I had friends come in and just, hand me checks and say, where do I make these checks out to? We want to make sure you hit your goal. Bergdorf Goodman that year, gave us a check for $1,000 instead of an auction item. They're like, we don't know what to give you. The women's section, they're like, we have shoes. That's too complicated. We have all these nice things, but there's like taste and, style and fashion. Can we just give you money? And I'm like, sure. Now we're 10% to our goal. That's amazing. So that really piqued my interest in the charity world. And it's always been what I want to be part of in any of my endeavors, any of my business happenings, right? And again, reflecting back to the Tony Robbins world, the secret to living is giving. Many of Tony's very strong principles are based on that. And, doing a lot of Tony Robbins work over the past couple of years, I saw things in a different light, not just him, but many other teachers, spiritual advisors, people like that. And even with my inner circle, with my clients and my members, just speaking to them on that different level, I was very surprised by some of the people that are very in tune with the spiritual world, quantum physics, things of that nature,
and contribution
and contribution. It's all tied in together, spirituality, whatever the case may be. And it was super, super interesting to me. So I've really run with that, and I tie it into everything I do. That's where we're at, and we're not stopping. I see this in 3 phases. Initially, the first phase, which we're still kind of teetering on, because now it's moved into New Jersey's being hit very bad right now. I grew up in New Jersey, so we've been helping there because they're probably peaking right now. And who knows where else in the country is going to be affected badly. We have a template that we can kind of shift anywhere. So we'll help whomever needs help. But even right here in New York, I look at it like the healthcare workers. Phase 1 is, okay, mayhem. We need to help. We need to give them the support. We need to put smiles on their face, boost morale, help their mindset, help them through this, because I really believe that is what's going to get them through this, right? The mindset. And I think phase 2 of that is when it levels off a little bit, which fortunately it started to. But when it really levels off, hopefully in the next couple weeks or month, it'll be like, okay, now we want to reward you. You have a little more time to breathe. Things are back to quote unquote normal-ish. And, we want to reward you now. Now you can actually enjoy the meals, and now you don't need PPE anymore, and whatever the case. Right. And in terms of feeding, I think that the economic and socioeconomic effects that will be part of the ripple to come from this, there's going to be people who cannot provide for their families, cannot feed themselves, that will need help. We want to help them too. In terms of the restaurants and hospitality partners, you know, they're reaching out. These are the ones that remained open now. They needed help. We helped them. We'll continue to help them to get them back on their feet. The restaurants that closed and will start to reopen, they're going to need help. You know, they're going to be operating at whatever it is, 50% or whatever the, you know, social distancing numbers become. You know, at some point it will get back to normal, but that's going to be a tough road ahead. A lot of them are closing, so we'll help them as well. And same thing, you know, we'll continue to align partnerships with them, whether it be, you know, it's great because we're working with the smaller restaurants to help them, but we're also working with the bigger restaurants, chains, groups, because then we can feed more people. They have the ability to give us better pricing. We can put that money to work. That's, you know, 2x or 3x what it is for one of the smaller ones. We want to help everyone. We're helping as many people as we can, and we're doing it in the most frictionless manner, I guess you would say. You know, whoever's working with us best and easiest, it's turnkey. We're sending out more meals through them, and then we're, you know, following up with the others as we have more money to say, you know, as I mentioned before, now we have X amount, we can pay you a little more. What can we do now? So very interesting.
Absolutely admirable. And, you know, we wouldn't expect anything less from you, Nick.
So kind. Thank you.
One of the things that I find fascinating and what I hope to get the point across is that, you know, you're leveraging your network, and you have you know, you have a knack of building extremely strong relationships and able to get access and proximity to influential people. Can you share a little bit about the importance of, you know, maintaining those relationships and building that community? Because I do think it's one of the challenges that sometimes our audience, women, don't necessarily, you know, they have a big network, but I don't think they sometimes tap into them as a resource the way that you have done successfully. What are some maybe tips or tricks of how you maintain those relationships and how you leverage the proximity that you have to your influential leaders and, you know, powerful peer groups?
Well, I think rapport is key. I think rapport leads to mutual trust. These are all relationship things, right? And I think that integrity is super important. And that's become more and more and more important to me as time goes on. You know, I've seen every side of everything. And, you know, in life, you use some of the downtimes or some of the bad things you've experienced. If you have your head straight and you see things in a better light for the future, you can use those to your advantage to get what you want and to help others get what they want in a positive way. So, you know, I think it really comes down to relationship. And I don't think it matters the woman or women side of things, right? I think everyone has the ability now to do anything. Right. You know, and that it doesn't matter if it's male, female, it doesn't matter if it's race or religion, it doesn't matter. Like all of that, for the most part, listen, it's not a perfect world, right? But for the most part, people are becoming more adaptable in that sense, right? And, you know, people get into politics and crap like that, and it's silly, you know, division and stuff like that. If you don't pay attention to that, and you really, you know, you focus on more individuality and you focus on the person, you focus on the relationship, and you kind of calm the noise. And if something's not going your way, change the channel. You know, there's plenty of options now. There's plenty of great people. It's becoming cool to do good. I don't know if you follow Gabby Bernstein at all.
Yes.
So she's awesome. I'm a big fan. She's a New Yorker. Her story is amazing. You know, she used to be a self-proclaimed party girl. And, you know, I've read several of her books multiple times. I do some of her meditations, and I think she's amazing. Her message is great. And, she said one thing, which I think a lot of females will relate to. It was a Sex and the City reference that, all the Sex and the City girls were trading in, don't quote me, but I think she said they were trading in their Manolos for, books and personal development and stuff like that. And it was cool to be good or something to that effect. Like, I'm sure I butchered that, but you understand where I'm going. And I think that, for females, that's one thing. For males, I think there's a bit of that as well when it comes down to the difference between males and females, the feminine, the masculine, etc. Again, more things we learn in Tony Robbins' world when he brings in experts in those worlds that are very valuable in psychology. That's what it comes down to. But I think that that's what it is. It's like, the more genuine that people are, the more that people act within integrity. And if there's, profit's profit. It's important. Money's money. It's important. There's people that look down upon commerce now. I referenced this before. If you're doing things with integrity and you're doing things for other people's benefit as well, the more you make, the more you can give.
Right.
Tony Robbins says it in a very interesting way. He's like, if you have a good person that comes into a lot of money, you'll have a good person with a lot of money. If you have a not so good person, he uses quite different language, but if you have a not so good person that comes into a lot of money, you can have a not so good person with a lot of money that may do bad things. Right. So it just gives you more options. And if your head's in the right place, if your mindset's in the right place, I think that sets the tone of what you're going to do. It comes down to, morals, values, principles, mission, vision, purpose, all of these things that are important. And, once you get yourself on the right track and you surround yourself with the right people, you can literally accomplish anything.
Fantastic. So in closing, I know that, you have lots of peers also in the hospitality industry who are struggling. What words of advice would you leave them with as we close out the podcast? And I'm sure there are going to be several people who are going to love to follow you and support your efforts in providing the meals and masks for all of the frontline workers. So how can they get in touch with you and help out?
Okay, so I guess my Instagram is easiest. It's Nick Champagne at Nick Champagne. My company is Status Luxury Group at Status Luxury Group. And then we have the GoFundMe page that has all the photos. It has updates every few days. And that's just www.statusluxurygroup.com/hospitality. So that redirects to there. We may put up a website soon. It's just been acting quick to help people. So we're a little behind on those things.
Certainly.
But you reference people in hospitality, and a lot of those people are out of work. These are crafty individuals. These are creatives. These are people that have talent, many different talents in many different ways. And, I've seen a lot of them get down, and, you have to keep going. That's it. Don't stop. This is in any industry. Out of the darkest times come the biggest rewards. That toughness. I'm not a political person, right? I don't always agree with Governor Cuomo, but that New York strong thing that he said was spot on. Whether you're a New Yorker or not, if you're a New Yorker, you really get it, because it's just, you keep going. We've been through it. Tough times come and tough people keep going. There's, things are not always the way that you think they should be. You fight through it and you keep going, and you end up getting help. People band together in crisis. Doing good, helping others, really, it sharpens your vision, and it keeps you focused to, even subconsciously and unintentionally, get to where you're supposed to be. So that's the best advice I can give. That's what I could have easily just looked at it like, oh wow, business is in the crapper right now, and this is bad and that's bad and poor me and doom and gloom and this and that, and
absolutely,
it's easy to get caught up in that. It's also easy to see the future and focus on the day after this passes. and the weeks that come after that, we don't know when it's going to be. Who cares? Like, this is more time. This is a rare time in life. None of us ever thought this would happen, right? Like, I never thought we'd see something like this. This is not one city or state or country that shut down. No. Everyone in the world is dealing with this. Whatever the reason, who cares? I'm big on, F the how. Who cares? Focus on that future, right? Take the time for whatever to reset and just go align with people, share missions, and that's it.
That's fantastic.
It keeps us going.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Again, thanks, Nick, so much for sharing your words of wisdom and, sharing what you're doing, and more power to you. And if Beyond Barriers can help you in any way, do let us know. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I look forward to chatting with you guys further. Awesome. I think there's so much more we can do and so many more people we can help. So thank you again.
Absolutely.
Have a great one.
Thanks for listening. There are thousands of podcasts out there, and we are so grateful that you've chosen to listen to ours. Visit IamBeyondBarriers.com, where you'll find show notes and links to all the resources referenced in this episode. And be sure to take the quiz on the website. Your score will tell you where you are, what helps you gain momentum, and what holds you back. You'll also get a free guide with cutting-edge career strategies. We'd also love to hear from you. Share your comments and topic suggestions on IamBeyondBarriers.com, and we'll be sure to address them in future episodes. If you enjoyed our show today, please subscribe and rate the podcast, or just tell a friend about it. See you next episode.